Good morning, beloved Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Boston, and welcome to our Facebook Live Sunday celebration. Happy Easter, happy Passover, and happy spring. We are here. We are continuing to respect the health officials around the world and retreat and nurture in place. My name is Rev G. Stewart, and I, along with Rev Ed Tansey, are the founders and spiritual leaders of this community of love, peace, joy, abundance, prosperity, and conscious spiritual seekers. Rev Ed, if you would be so kind, I would love for you to bring us together in one of our purpose statements of our 4 purpose statements.
Yes, I will, Rev.
And you're muted.
Okay. What we are called to fulfill. Co-creating a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. And what we are called to fulfill.
Actually, we want to do the I statement, if you're able to move that slide, Rev Ed.
Okay. What I am called to fulfill. I co-create a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. I'd like to repeat that again. And if at home, if you'd like to say it out loud, please do. What I am called to fulfill. I co-create a world that works for everyone and for all of creation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rev Ed.
You're welcome.
So I just want to remind everybody that you can find our full purpose statement, all 4 of our statements, on our website at cslboston.org. You will find all kinds of great information in our website, and we certainly look forward to you checking us out and seeing what we're up to and what's going on in our community. And if our message feeds you this morning, we welcome your vital financial support, which you can make either by scanning, as you see the thing come up on the screen during today's program. You can scan, it'll take you right to our PayPal, or you can go right to our cslboston.org to make a donation there as well. So please join me as I move us into the evocation to prepare us for today's program. So just taking a moment to take a deep breath and move into center. Move into that inner realm, that inner space, that inner energy. That place where the God of each one's understanding dwells. This presence, this power, this light, this love, and this joy that I call the Mother, Father, God is awake and aware and alive in me, as me, and through me. And as I know this for myself, I know that that is the absolute truth of each and every one who joins on Facebook Live this morning or comes in and watches this later in the archives, however it is done, however each one moves forward. I know that there is good and very, very good, and that it is revealed and absolutely brought into form. And so I know that this presence and this power is beautifully blessing this activity this morning. It is moving through me as I give the message, knowing that it is expressing exactly what needs to be heard by each and every one, so that each one deepens and becomes stronger expressions of the one mind. So in gratitude for all of this good that I know is already revealed in this moment, I gratefully and I joyfully accept this as truth. And I say, and so it is.
And so it is.
So Rev Ed, if you would offer us your spiritual reading this morning, I would love to hear what you've brought for us.
Thank you, Rev G. So this morning's spiritual reading comes from the Science of Mind magazine that was dated Thursday, April 2nd. Its title is Living in the Not Knowing. Living in the question allows us to open to the infinite mystery, life unfolding in its own way, with us as part of it. Along for the ride. Open to being part of a larger universe which is not in our charge. And that is from Nancy Collier. And from Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind on page 364, the answer to every question is within man, because man is within spirit, and spirit is an indivisible whole. We've selected another candidate. You didn't get the job, said the employer with whom I had just interviewed. I thanked her for considering me, hung up the phone, and burst into tears. Finding employment had never been an issue for me, with years of solid skills on my resume. But after being laid off for a year ago from a job I held for almost 3 years, securing steady work seemed elusive. As I shared my story with a wise friend, she said, "Your reaction wasn't about the job. It was about your hope that you would no longer have to live in the not knowing." Her accuracy stunned me. For quite some time, I had been living in the not knowing, a place where the ground beneath me kept moving, where my finances went up and down, where relationships kept shifting, where everything that used to work in my life no longer did. Those of us on the spiritual path eventually find ourselves in the not knowing. It's uncomfortable, sometimes terrifying and essential to our growth as spiritual beings. It is there that we must learn to embrace the not knowing and lean into and trust the spiritual unfoldment that is taking place, even if we cannot see it. Staying in the not knowing is Olympic grade work. It requires a willingness to surrender to what is while knowing that our good is forever coming to us and through us. And the affirmation written on that day is as follows: I firmly plant my feet in the not knowing, allowing spirit to guide me. And so it is. And again, that came from The Science of Mind magazine.
Great, Rev Ed. And if you could bring up our song, let's join together in our community song, which is God is Real. Pardon our technical difficulties. God is love, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love, God is real, God is magnificent, God is light, God is love. I am real, I am magnificent, I am light, I am love. I am real, I am magnificent, I am light, I am love. We are real, we are magnificent, you are light, you are love. You are real, you are magnificent, you are light, you are love. We are real, we are magnificent, we are light, we are love.
We are real, we are magnificent, we are light, we are love. Spirit is real, spirit is magnificent, spirit is light, spirit is love. Spirit is real, spirit is magnificent, spirit is light, spirit is love.
Beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed singing along with us. That was absolutely wonderful. So as I begin my talk this morning, I want to acknowledge all who are, I apologize. I moved ahead, actually. What we want to share now is actually what we believe. And the what we believe statements, there were 11 of them that Ernest Holmes created. And each month we are trying to deepen this by not only saying we, but then saying I, bringing it into ourselves. So if you will join with me in our fourth statement, if I could get that up on the screen. Wonderful. Thank you. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. And now let's move on to saying that in the I as that slide comes up. I believe that heaven is within me and that I experience it to the degree that I become conscious of it. Thank you so much for that, Rev Ed. This morning, Rev Ed is doing our technology. So we are so blessed that he is willing to step up into technology. And we all know how technology can make him cringe. So, all right. So as I begin my talk this morning, again, as I mentioned before, we acknowledge all who may be mourning the loss of a loved one as a result of this COVID-19, or who may actually be experiencing the virus themselves. And I also want to thank all of the essential workers and all of those who are doing so much to keep the world running as we go through this sheltering in place and this staying at home. We know that those who have to go out, that we bless them. And I keep them in prayer for strength, wholeness, and loving compassion to each and every one. So we are continuing in the 2020 CSL theme of spiritual vision. And our April theme is bright beginnings. And also today's talk is broken opened. This morning, well, actually, let's go ahead and see what broken open has to do here. Breaking out of our shell, emerging into the new. All right. So this morning, I would like to look at a few different things here. I'd like to look at how we at Centers for Spiritual Living look at Easter. And also I want to look at the time between the ending and the beginning. And finally, busting loose. Are you ready to bust loose? I am, I know that. So let's start with, what do we believe, or what do we think when it comes to Centers for Spiritual Living or the science of mind and how we look at Easter? We look at the metaphysical idea of the Jesus story of crucifixion and resurrection. It is about the death of the old ways of being and stepping in or birthing the new ways. It is about the transition, much the same way we look at death in our teaching as the human body as simply a transition from this experience to the next plane of existence, whatever that may look like. And for each one of us, it may look differently. I know for myself that when I look at the story of Easter, my focus is on the new life on the other side of the crucifixion. It is much like when I am experiencing a challenge in my life. I call it keeping my eye on the prize. It is keeping my mind on how I would like to be when I move beyond the challenge. Now, Deepak Chopra said in a Time magazine article interview, the symbolic language of the crucifixion is the death of the old paradigm. Resurrection is a leaping into a whole new way of thinking. This is what we believe in New Thought. This is the thing that we look at, and this is what we feel. It is a moving through the valley of the shadow of death and not stopping to rent a condo or pitch a tent, as you so often will hear us say. Moving into the promised land, which, by the way, is each of our birthrights. So I remember when I look back at my life, how I sometimes would pitch a tent and not be able to move forward into the good that I wanted to experience. For me, it was some of my old jobs. My old jobs, I used to think, oh, it's the boss who's against me, who doesn't want me to succeed. I'm never going to get anywhere. And it was always that story. The problem is each time I moved to a new job, I was in that same paradigm. And I want to talk more about that when we go into our next thing. But I really want you to understand that it's like those stories sometimes hold us back, and we may not even be aware they're going on in our life. Now, Ernest Holmes speaks of the process that we use to, and are always using, to move beyond and into that promised land or that individual greatness in this following quotation. The Spirit that raised Jesus dwells in all. Wow, that's good news, right? This Spirit quickens our mortal bodies when we let it. Here is a lesson in mental and spiritual healing. As the truth dawns upon the subjective state of our thought, it stimulates it into newness of action. So you see, your thoughts are going into the subjective side of life, and they're creating more. And then he further says that everything works from within out. And those beautiful slides you will see later in our Facebook page throughout the week as we have them come in for you to be able to enjoy. So what he is speaking of is the cosmic Christ, or the Christ consciousness, or the cosmic, whatever you want to call it. It is that enlightenment. Now, this is quite simply when we do our spiritual practices and move in to that indwelling presence and move into that place and listen for the true enlightenment. This enlightenment, which we are looking for, comes from within. We don't find it out in the world outside of us. We find it within. Now let's look at the time between the endings and the beginnings. First, we have to understand that the reason I do my spiritual practice and you do your spiritual practice is to move through these times between. These between times are the most important times we can spend. Even though most of us want to move through that area as quickly as possible and get to the other side. But it's important that we take the time in that between time. It is much like the time between when the crucifixion took place and the resurrection of the new life took place. Now, in his book, Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes, William Bridges says this: transitions always start with an ending. To become something else, you have to stop being what you are now. To start doing things a new way, you have to end the way you are doing them now. And to develop a new attitude or outlook, you have to let go of the old. As I said before, these are the transitions from the old to the new. And it is in this transition time Or as William Bridges states in his book, The Void, or the neutral zone, that we allow our soul and consciousness to ready us for a new that is birthing through us and in us. I know that when I rush through that neutral zone to get to the other side, I find that I will begin to repeat the same old patterns and behaviors over and over and over again. Ernest Holmes refers to this as the process in healing, the time it takes for us on the human level to move through to the place of understanding that we have nothing to heal. We only have the truth to be revealed. Now, when I spoke earlier of that pattern that kept coming up in my life, this pattern of limiting my experience, I'm speaking of my old bosses and old jobs and old situations. And that paradigm keeps revealing itself, or kept revealing itself, and has in the past. And as at times now, I'm even seeing that same paradigm of, oh my gosh, it's something outside of me that's causing the problem, when no, I have to begin within. And it is being in that neutral time that I can open up a greater way of being, a greater way of experiencing life. But if I don't remain in that unknown time, Rev Ed's reading was perfect this morning in that it was that not knowing. Being in that not knowing, that can be such an uncomfortable place for us. But for me, it's a place I have to be in order to move to the greater yet to be. Now, I keep my idea of what it is that I want to experience on the other side. But I must and I will stay in that time of not knowing until I feel that I am ready to move forward. So as any one of us goes through an unpleasant experience, we can certainly set an intention, as I mentioned before, of what we would desire on the other side. But remember to not rush the process. Process is how we heal the old paradigms. In that process, we heal the old paradigms. So we stay in the void, or the neutral zone, as William Bridges mentions, and listen. And we do our spiritual practices together for clarity and to clear and get a clear perspective and clear away the limited fear. It is in the zone that we can find and break down those old patterns, so we don't have to go through them again. And then we can receive a full and complete manifestation, the one that we desire to experience on the other side of the pain and the discomfort and the difficult conversations and all the different things that we go through in order to move through this experience. Now, once this work is done, you and I are ready for busting loose. And as Anais Nin says in this quote, "And the time came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than it took to bloom." We have remained in this tight bud long enough when we know we've done our spiritual practices and we take the time. So now we're ready to bust loose, to go forward into that greater yet to be. So if we remain tight in our spiritual practice, we will know when we are ready to bloom. Sometimes sitting in the pain, and now our soul is now ready to bloom. The beauty of spiritual practice is that it calls us to listen to our intuition. And our intuition will always guide us when we know that it is time for us to burst into glorious bloom. It is through this intuition that we know that. This is what we see in the power of the story of the resurrection. Maybe you and I don't hear angels singing or see a great stone rolled away from our tomb, but there is a great breaking through taking place. Would you agree? Absolutely. This is also the story of the enlightenment of the Buddha. Siddhartha sat in the void or the neutral zone until he experienced enlightenment. This is not just a one-day celebration of Easter or whatever faith tradition you follow. It is an everyday celebration, embracing the journey. I would like to share this beautiful poem with you from Walt Whitman, and I think it speaks to the story of the resurrection. The moment you stand up and claim your divinity, Christ is reborn within your heart. Buddha rejoices. Mohammed dances upon the mountain. Lao Tzu winks approvingly. And the promise of the tree of life is fulfilled. And I know that the hand of God is the promise of my own. And I know that the Spirit of God is the brother of my own. And that all the men ever born are also my brother, and the women my sisters and my lovers. He so beautifully speaks to this idea of being broken open, to stepping into the truth of who we are. So my call for you today is to examine your life. Ask yourself, what is dying or ready to die in my life? Where am I living in the void or neutral zone, and am I embracing the process? And where is something ready to be birthed or to bloom or to burst into new life in my life? By asking these questions, we, each one, open the great opportunity to be the fullest expression of our divine selves in the world. Now is the time. Let's do this. Namaste. And if you will join me in prayer, closing your eyes if you're comfortable, moving within, taking a moment to recognize and realize the one infinite universal life force, this presence that I call the Mother, Father, God, that is all love and joy and peace and perfection and abundance and wholeness. It is all things and more. And it is joyously expressing itself in and as and through all of its creation, most especially today in this time of Easter and Passover and spring. For it is in this consciousness of the Divine One that life is springing eternally into the new. And so I am grateful in the realization that it is expressing individualized as me, and as each and every one who has joined us here today live on Facebook, and for each and every one who joins in the archives later on. For this divine presence and this universal good that I call the Mother, Father, God is awake and aware and alive in everything and as everything. The joy that is the divine presence is awake and aware and alive right now. And it is from this place of knowing that truth that I simply call into form for each one to feel and know a deeper experience of the story of the Christ, the crucifixion of the old ideas and the resurrection of the new and grand and glorious, and the willingness to sit in that neutral zone and move in and through the process. The process that allows for that greater intuition to arise within each one and bring forward an ever greater expression of each one's life. I know that this divine presence is awake and aware and alive in each one and is busting loose into their life right here and right now. I am deeply and profoundly grateful as I accept this good as fulfilled, as complete, right here and right now. It is manifest in this moment. And in this gratitude and joy for this good, I simply allow it to flow into that infinite activity of the universal mind of law. The law that receives this impress of each one's heart desire and acts upon it, brings it into form, fulfills it right here and right now. And I simply let this be by saying, blessed be, amen, ashe, and joining together and saying, and so it is. Hmm. Hmm.
Thank you, Rev G. That was a beautiful prayer, and I really enjoyed your message today.
Oh, thank you. I'm hoping that you would be willing to share our affirmation with us today.
Yes, we will do that. Here it is, and if we can say it all together. Today, I am open to great changes in my life, claiming the highest expression of who I can be. I claim my greatness now. And let's say that once more together if you so choose. Today, I am open to great changes in my life, claiming the highest expression of who I can be. I claim my greatness now. And so it is.
That is beautiful, Rev Ed. Thank you so much for that beautiful affirmation. And if my message this morning moved you, or if it was a part of your spiritual practice and spiritually fed you, we always welcome you to join us in our financial giving. This is a place where you can actually go and you can just scan that with your phone. It'll take you right to our PayPal site where you can give your tax-deductible gift to our community. Your support is vital to our community. And Rev Ed, if you would go ahead and provide us with the
announcements.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I am so pleased to announce that our next Love Connection is coming up this Thursday at 7:30 in our Zoom meeting. And we are so honored to have the renowned Karen Drucker as our guest artist for this week. So please join us for a wonderful evening of prayer, meditation, song, and fellowship. And the next announcement, which I cannot seem to get on the screen, Rev G.
Oh, let me help you with that.
Thank you.
Oh, you need to move your slide presentation forward.
Okay.
Alt-Tab.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're very happy to say that this coming Tuesday on April 14th from 7:30 to 8, please join us as we honor and celebrate our blessed animals, our blessed animal companions, as we also bless them this evening. And I ask you to bring them in their Sunday best so we can show them on screen, hear their name, and also bless them. And I believe that's it for my announcements.
I believe it is, Rev Ed. Thank you so much for sharing the announcements. I will be posting a link for a Zoom meeting for us to have fellowship after service today. We look forward to seeing all your beautiful faces so we can talk to each other, because I know when we're in this realm of the live on Facebook, that we can see your beautiful comments. And I've been enjoying your comments as we've gone through this morning. It's been such a wonderful thing. So I would say, Rev Ed, if you think we are complete, do you feel complete?
I believe we are. And I just again want to say to everyone, happy Passover, happy Easter, happy spring, and thank you for joining us this morning. I look forward to seeing you all in fellowship.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.